In today's video, we'll talk about one of the most emotional stories in Gray's Anatomy, Meredith Gray's journey with Alzheimer's. This storyline is not only one of the most touching in the series, but also reflects a very real fear and a profound struggle that we can all, in some way, relate to. Meredith faces this disease not just as a doctor, but also as a daughter and mother, dealing with the legacy of her mother, Ellis Gray, and the heavy knowledge that she herself may one day face the same condition. It all starts with her mother's story. Ellis was one of the most brilliant surgeons of her generation, but she was also an emotionally distant woman whose work-focused life cost her many opportunities to connect with her daughter. Ellis was always an imposing, cold figure, obsessed with her career. For Meredith, this meant living in the shadow of a woman who saw her as a kind of second choice, never good enough, never deserving of her mother's attention. When Ellis begins to show signs of Alzheimer's, Meredith's life is turned upside down. The woman she had always idealized, the one she tried so hard to please, starts to slip away. Ellis's memories fade little by little, and the once invincible figure becomes a fragile and unrecognizable reflection of herself. For Meredith, this is devastating, not just because she is losing her mother in such a cruel way, but because she starts to realize that she might one day face the same fate. The truth hits even harder when Meredith discovers she carries the ApoE4 gene, one of the main risk factors for Alzheimer's. This moment becomes a turning point in her life. Imagine knowing that, at any moment, you could share the same destiny as your mother. This discovery causes Meredith to view life from a new perspective. She starts worrying about everything, her memories, her relationships, and the time that may be slipping away faster than she'd like. Every moment with her loved ones becomes more precious, but also more threatened by the possibility of a future without memories. As a mother, her worries intensify. Meredith has 3 children, Zola, Bailey, and Ellis. Although Zola is adopted, Meredith feels a profound love for her and starts to worry about her health, especially since Zola has shown some neurological difficulties from a young age, which could signal something more serious. Her biological children, Bailey and Ellis, also carry the concern that they might inherit their mother's gene and face the same grim future. Was she irresponsible for deciding to have children knowing the risks she faced? Is she, in some way, condemning her children to confront the same disease in the future? These are questions that haunt Meredith throughout the series. If Meredith were to actually develop Alzheimer's and her story reached this conclusion, the consequences for the series would be immense and deeply emotional. Meredith has always been the beating heart of Gray's Anatomy, the protagonist who carried stories of pain, resilience, love, and loss. Such an ending would not only be heartbreaking, but would also have a tremendous impact on the other characters and the show's trajectory. Meredith's Alzheimer's would mean the gradual loss of her identity. She has always been a brilliant doctor, known for her ability to save lives and her leadership in the hospital, as well as a dedicated mother and loyal friend. Her descent into the disease would be one of the most tragic and symbolic transitions in the series, as she would be forced to confront her greatest fear, losing her memories, the very essence of who she is, and the impact she has had on the lives of those around her. The irony would be cruel. Meredith, the woman who spent her professional life saving lives, would face a condition that would inevitably erase her own story. Her ability to operate, to make quick and decisive choices, would start to fade. The memories of her children, her friends, and the most precious moments of her life would disappear. And as she watches herself consumed by the same disease that caused her mother to lose her identity, Meredith would find herself in a constant struggle to maintain her connection to her family and her career. The pain of being unable to recognize her own children or forgetting who she was would be a cruel portrait of the condition. The impact of this transition would be devastating for everyone around her. Her children, Zola, Bailey, and Ellis, would have to face the reality of losing their mother twice. First, as she loses her memory, and later, as they have to care for her in ways they never imagined. Meredith's relationship with her children has always been marked by her desire to be the mother she never had, trying to make up for what Ellis didn't give her. Seeing her own motherhood threatened by the disease would be one of the most emotional and tragic points in the series, as she would have to accept that despite her efforts, she couldn't stop the destiny her genetics had written. Meredith's Alzheimer's would also profoundly affect the other characters in the series. Her friends and colleagues, who have always stood by her, would be forced to watch their friend and leader slowly fade away. Christina Yang, who was like a sister to Meredith, would be deeply affected. Their bond has always been strong, and the thought of losing her friend to the disease would be a personal devastation. Even characters who have weathered many crises with Meredith, like Alex Karev, Miranda Bailey, and Richard Webber, would have to grapple with the shock and pain of seeing her become a shadow of the woman she once was. The Seattle hospital, which owes so much to her, would lose one of its greatest driving forces, a doctor who pushed boundaries and created a legacy of excellence. Meredith, who has always been a survivor, who rose from the greatest adversities and fought to the end, would now face her biggest battle, fighting against a condition she cannot defeat. This would spark an interesting reflection for the other characters. How would they deal with the powerlessness in the face of a disease that slowly erases everything a person is? They would have to learn to cope with loss while still living, confronting the pain of watching someone they love disappear before their eyes. From a narrative standpoint, Meredith's illness would bring a drastic shift to the direction of the series. With the loss of her identity and the progression of Alzheimer's, she could no longer fulfill the role of the protagonist in the same way. This would create space for other characters to shine, but in a melancholic and bittersweet manner. It would mark a transitional moment where the focus of the series could shift, with the other doctors at Seattle taking the reins of the hospital and, perhaps, their own lives, now that Meredith would be increasingly distant. At the same time, Meredith's Alzheimer's would serve as a tribute to her legacy, as the series would have to explore themes of memory, identity, and what it truly means to live. How would the other characters deal with Meredith's legacy? How would they cope with the fact that she, who had always been their rock, would now lose her memory of them, the hospital, and the career she helped build? This would add an extra layer of emotion to the interactions and arcs of other characters, forcing them to reflect on the impermanence of life and the importance of being present. In the end, Meredith Gray's departure from the series through Alzheimer's would conclude her story in a painful yet profoundly meaningful way. Throughout Gray's Anatomy, we've seen Meredith grow, change, lose, and find new reasons to live. She had children, built her career, endured immense losses, but always moved forward, learning to live with her scars. Her battle with Alzheimer's would therefore be the ultimate metaphor for her entire journey, the struggle to keep memories alive, the fight not to lose herself while becoming who she is. This farewell would leave fans in tears, but also with a deep sense of admiration for everything Meredith stood for, not only as a doctor and leader, but as a woman, mother, and friend. She would be remembered as the character who, even in the face of her deepest fear, managed to live fully. Even when memory was no longer her ally, she would remain a strong presence in the lives of others, a living legacy, albeit in shadows. The way Meredith Grey would be written out of the series, not through a heroic ending or a glorious farewell, but through the slow loss of her own identity, would only make her legacy more powerful and poignant. A reminder that life is indeed brief and full of uncertainties, but the way we live and love can endure through time. If Gray's Anatomy were to end with this arc, the impact would be immeasurable. It would be a farewell that, even as it broke our hearts, would leave us with an eternal message about the value of memories and unconditional love. If this story moved you and you want to see more content like this, don't forget to leave a like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.